Maybe today we'll get to work on the foreground with the golden looking sticks and twigs and stuff. We're going to try to put those in. And we're going to get ready for day 3. Yeah, hello everybody, welcome back to the final episode of trying to make a replica of the legendary John Avon forest. We've got one episode to go. On this one, we're pretty much just going to do the foreground and some final tweaks. I'm super excited. It's going to be lots of fun. So, yeah, let's just jump straight into it. Hey, like I already kind of showed you a glimpse of what the final result looks like. But for now, what I'm trying to do here is for the foreground, I'm grabbing these like golden bronze kind of colors. And what I'm trying to do is create this gradient from shiny bronze to kind of like some darker browny shades towards the bottom, and creating the illusion that the light that's shining through the trees is kind of like lighting up the forest floor. And then towards the foreground, as per usual, things can go a little bit higher in contrast, so they can become a little bit darker, and as if there's like this, just like in the original art, this wide open glowy clearing in the middle, in the center, and then towards the foreground we'll have some darker twigs, or at least some higher contrast twigs where it's like super bright versus super dark, but we'll save that for a little bit later. First I want to get this gradient right. It kind of seems to be the theme of the series, but that's probably just what we learned from trying to make a replica of this piece, is that John Avon loves his gradients and uses it for, I don't know, just to create this very striking composition effect. It's like probably the main, would you call it a trick, technique, style? I guess you could call it all of those things. So it's really cool to unravel those things and kind of like jump into the mind of what makes this piece so, striking the way it is, Going back into some glowy yellows here. Lots and lots of blending medium like we have done in our previous episodes. If you haven't seen those yet, I'll put a link up in the description so you can check those out too. But yeah, we're basically trying to create this super striking lit up forest floor from the center outward. And that takes a couple of layers, so I'm just speeding up the video a little bit here and there because I'm putting on layer after layer after layer after layer to kind of like increase that glow, rinse and repeat. So I did that a couple times. Going back into our browns here for our bottom section, and just kind of smudging those up a little bit too. Lots of blending medium in this one too. And here is when I'm starting to layer in a little bit of texture as well. Like I'm using the brush kind of like to create these grassy, twiggy patches of texture with the paint. I don't want this gradient to be as smooth as the one that we did in the sky. I want this to have kind of like a leafy kind of texture. Using the big brush every now and then to kind of fade things out, but I do want this leafy texture, this grassy texture to remain in the gradient. So lots of small little strokes, but I'm not trying to make them smooth. It's okay to be patchy on these gradients here. And then every now and then I go back into our whitish, yellowish glow. Same thing, smudge it out a little bit. We can definitely like smudge up. Hey, thumbs up. We can definitely smudge up the whiter bits, but the brown bits I definitely want them to be a little bit more texturized. Here I've got a liner brush, very thin. It's really hard to see on camera. Ooh, that was a good one. I'm basically just using this swingy upward motion to create all kinds of twigs and sticks sticking out. But the paint doesn't always release, so sometimes you see me make lots of movements, but the paint, doesn't actually release onto the canvas that much. And because I'm a little bit zoomed in and my camera is not super high quality, you can't see it all that well. But in the end, you're going to see the result. It is going to add a little bit of texture every single time I hit the canvas. It's just not always as visible on camera. But in the end, it's like, it just hits you like, whoa, where did all this grass came from? Well, it's from all this upward semicircular motion. And we do that for a long time. But look at that. And all of a sudden we have this texture at the bottom with all these sticks and things going, growing. Going into some of our, basically the same color as we use for our glowy patch in the middle. I'm just using the same technique, same brush, to drop in a little bit of highlights on these darker patches, upping the contrast between light and dark. And that makes these sticks and twigs stand out a little bit more towards the foreground. And I'm just barely touching the canvas here. It's like whatever paint falls off, that's going to be your leaf or your stick or your twig. But you don't want to smudge this much. It's kind of cool to have them be a little bit texturized, like as if the paint is breaking up. Because you know those kind of leaves that are a little bit battered on the sides, like raffled, as if, you know, they've been out in nature for a bit and they have like rough edges and stuff. That's what we're trying to get here anyway. So you can leave those edges a little bit rough. Just trying not to blob is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes you have too much paint on your brush and then it just creates this big old smudge. We don't want that. We want it to be like sharp and kind of broken up, I suppose. And I'm swapping back and forth between tweaking the foreground with our sticks and twigs and stuff, and tweaking our fade into the background towards background trees. So that's what I'm doing here. Swapping between brushes. We did this lots in the last video where I have one brush going with my paint and blending medium and the other brush is dry. So I'm swapping in between them where I put some paint and some blending medium on. And then I go in with the dry brush to actually go and blend it and fade it. Here I've gone back to a liner brush with some very dark colors. There's no black in here, but it's definitely a very dark mix of blue and red oxide and brown. And I tried to make this paint as dark as I could without using black. And with that liner brush, I'm just putting the tip onto the canvas, and I'm kind of like twisting and twirling the brush around as I lay down these sticks that in the original art, they have a very distinct kind of like arc to them. It's like they're all kind of like, I don't know, like curving up and then downward again, like arcs. So I'm trying to get that same feel to it, I suppose, that same shape. Although I'm not 100% mimicking, you know, I'm not studying like, oh, how high is this this particular branch in the original art. I'm just like going with the flow here and creating something similar rather than copying it, you know, millimeter for millimeter. Here I've loaded up that same liner brush with some super bright yellows. And I'm just dropping in a little bit of highlight here, making sure that the tip of this brush is very chiseled, very sharp. Loaded it up with paint. And I want these lines to be thin. Don't want to blob them too much. Same principle, same technique as before, where we're just very gently letting that brush hit the canvas. And whatever paint falls off, that's gonna be your little shiny twig or your little shiny piece of grass. Definitely don't want to blob it again. You want these lines to be thin and sharp. Just using that same brush, similar color, just to give a little bit of sparkle here towards the center tree, the one that's in full bloom. And I wanted these little petals to maybe cross over the trees a little bit more, just to create a little bit of sense of distance, where if we make these petals go over the trees left and right, it's going to push those trees back into the background just a little bit further, create a little bit more separation between them, as if this tree that's in bloom is a little bit closer towards us, whereas the ones that are not, they're further in the back. They get pushed back a little bit. So nifty little technique, super easy. And towards the bottom here, towards the glow, towards the center patch of sunshine, I'm just dropping in a little bit of sparkles here and there. Just give an indication that maybe there's, I don't know, there's bugs flying around or something, or maybe there's like dust and pollen blowing around, so kind of like give a little bit of shine to them, make it come alive. In the end, I didn't like the shape of this tree here on the left, so I'm just mixed up my old green colors. I'm just trimming it a little bit. And then as for our final touches, just going back in with a liner brush and some super bright whitish yellow. Final highlights here towards the foreground, just to up the contrast a little bit. And that's going to be our copy, our replica of the famous John Avon forest. Hope you all had a great time watching. Hope you all learned something new. I sure did. I'm going to put them up, see if you can tell which one was which. All right, everybody. So that was day 3 of our John Avon forest painting. This is the result. Final result. It's done. It's finished. I feel like I did a pretty decent job of getting the point across of John Avon's original forest. I feel like the green gradient turned out nicely. The glow in the middle, I feel like it's very resembling. Let's just use that word. You can let me know how I did in the comments. Did I do good? Did I good? You can let me know in the comments. Did I do good? Did I do bad? If there's anything you learned, I definitely learned a lot from using this as a study. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Enjoy.